to the career virtual career launch session, helping you to be a greater you. I'm your host, Dali Perez, and this launch is designed to help middle and high school students to prepare for life after high school. Because failing to plan is planning to fail. And today we're going to talk about leadership style. We're going to explore the different leadership styles, the different situation, how to develop, how to refine when you have a leadership approach. But before we dive in today's topic, we want to give a special thanks to the Career Lounge session sponsor, EXL, a leading data analytics and digital operations and solutions company. If you want to learn more about EXL, go to exlservice.com. Thank you to the sponsorship. We are able to bring this lounge to you at no cost. A little bit about us: we are Love Our Youth, is a 501c3 nonprofit company providing programs for youth. Our mission is to leverage the power of collaboration to uplift and empower the youth and their families within our community. But before we kick off today's topic, let's learn more about our panelists today. So we're going to bring them in, and please share your name, tell us a little bit about yourself, your current role in your company, and why did you choose your career?
Hi, my name is Linda Poor. I am the Senior Assistant Vice President of Human Resources for our payment services business in the US. And my role, I chose my role because I love working with people and finding solutions to help things work more effectively in a business from a people perspective. I've been with EXL for just a little over 6 years.
My name is Rishabh Jain. I go by Rish. I'm based out of Chicago. I work as a client executive here at EXL, which basically means that I manage relationships with some of our key clients. I also lead our private equity channel for healthcare. Now, this is a good question saying, why did I choose my career? I don't think so. I had the choice when I started here, but I can tell you that throughout my career, which is about 22 years with EXL and about 4 years prior to EXL, I just made good choices of wherever or whatever I do. And that's where the career progression has happened. I look forward to this conversation.
I'm Noah Koha Jackson. My title would be Lead Assistant Manager in Payment Integrity. I'm on our strategy team in payment integrity. I feel like it's a really lucky place to be. I get to do a lot of forward thinking work, get to look at problems kind of outside of the box and see where we can move the business in the near term, the long term, and just try to drive the business forward. I've been at EXL for only a few months. This is my first full-time job out of college, so I'm very new to the full-time career environment. And yeah, I'd say I looked at EXL and the health side specifically as exciting and challenging because the healthcare industry in the U.S. has a lot of inefficiencies, a lot of problems, and a lot of potential for really great improvements and really great changes to be made. So I just think it's an exciting place to be in a health tech company like EXL to be able to drive some of those.
Great, and I'll kind of wrap it up. I'm the old guy online. My name's Kurt Anderson. I'm the Senior Vice President of Payment Integrity, principally focusing in strategy. I've been in the workforce for over 40 years. But the question of how did I get into this space, I think, is very pertinent. It was actually by accident, and sometimes that's how careers start, are by accident. I was getting a master's in petroleum management, and it happened to be right at the time that the petroleum industry kind of crashed. And so I quickly switched because the university I was going to had a large medical center on it to healthcare. And I figured healthcare will never crash. We will always have the demand for healthcare wherever we live. So that's how I got involved into my career at this point.
That's very interesting. From petroleum to healthcare. And that's interesting because I've heard a lot of people saying, okay, what's the industry that's never going to crash or that's never going to go down? Okay, that's where I'm going to go. And sometimes there's people that chose, careers more in that analytical way or what's gonna work, and some others go just with the passion. It doesn't matter. So that's interesting how we make those choices, right, throughout our life. But today we're going to talk about leadership styles. But before we talk about those different styles, I want to dive in a little bit of what is a leader? What does it mean to be a leader in these times?
It's a big question, right? What is a leader? But at least in my belief, I think a leader is somebody that represents their team, right? Represents the energy, the direction of that team, helps ensure that they are headed in the right direction. There's a lot of pieces to that, so that's a very general statement. But most importantly, a leader is kind of the chief cheerleader, right? Whether it's for a five-man team or it's for an entire company, um, to kind of drive positive momentum forward in the organization or in the marketplace. You need a leader that is constantly encouraging, right? Helping, providing vision, right, to that team, for the team to be successful. So I would just say a coach and a cheerleader, right, are a couple of really important attributes for a leader.
I mean, really, when you talk about a leader, I'm talking about being someone who's visionary, who's inspiring, who's trustworthy, empowering, resilient, responsible, supportive. These are words that we hear every day. It's a combination of all that kind of makes a leader who can actually bring the best of what this team can bring together and multiply that into a powerful output. When we put 1 plus 1 together, it's 11. It's not 2. So that's what the team leader's job really is, or the leader's job is.
I would say I agree with both of those things. I think both of those are key elements of what makes a leader. The biggest thing I think to keep in mind is it's not necessarily a position. In other words, it's not, sometimes when we hear the word leader, we assume it's the manager or the person who's accountable from an organization structure perspective. But you can actually be a leader in any role by doing the very things that we were just talking about, that by being that person that's the cheerleader, by being future focused and helping coworkers really be able to drive results and make a huge impact by being inspirational. So really anybody can be a leader by doing those things.
Well said.
Yeah, awesome. Honestly, all of the above have been amazing. I think one of the core components when I think about leadership is leaders are defined by the impact on those around them. So the impact on their teams, the people they're leading, um, and as Linda mentioned, leadership can be informal. It doesn't necessarily mean you've been appointed to a position or decided to take a position, but it's really your impact in the day to day on the people around you that defines leadership in many ways. And I think a leader should really focus on trying to drive the skills and then the intrinsic motivation of people around them and people in their team. So bringing out the best in the people they're leading, holding them accountable, driving them forward, and being rational but optimistic at the same time. So being a very rational figure where you're methodical, you're clear in your intentions, you're clear in your plans, but also optimistic. You got to give people something to dream for and excite them as you're leading them as well.
That's amazing. And you have mentioned different stuff like visionary, trustworthy, supportive, that coach, that is not a specific role, that is someone that holds people accountable and all that. So can we talk a little bit about how does that look like, right? What are those different kind of leadership styles? Because that goes along sometimes with the personality, which how that person is, and that's the style that that person has. But sometimes depending on the group, depending on the need, depending on what you're doing, you gotta adapt some styles to the situation, and not necessarily because that's who you are or that's your personality. So can we talk a little bit about what different leadership styles there are, and how can we implement them in the different scenarios?
Yeah, so there are definitely different leadership styles out there, and typically you might be naturally inclined to one approach or an approach that works best for you. And that could be someone who is very charismatic and outgoing, or it could be someone who is more leads from a quiet space and through personal relationships. So there are lots of different styles that may come naturally. But I think the best leaders, the ones that really make an impact, do in fact adjust that style based on the situation they're in and what the needs of the people are that they're trying to lead, because different people will respond and gravitate towards different needs. If you have someone that is that style that's a little bit more quiet or reserved, they're going to respond best to a more personal quiet approach. If you have someone that is a little bit more outgoing and flamboyant, they're going to want more liveliness and activity. You've got to be able to adjust your style to the individual and also to the situation.
Yeah, I would just kind of um, expand on that a little bit, in that it also is the situation, right? So you could be put into a position of project leadership, right? And project leadership is around a very defined goal and a very defined outcome within a defined period of time. And uh, and there are, defined activities that come with that project. It's all about making sure that the team is progressing against that project plan, right? And then from a leadership perspective, it is holding the team accountable relative to execution against that plan. To then kind of a different style of, if you're leading market development or strategy, or something that is less defined, but there are growth needs that come out of that. Uh, that in itself may necessitate that you be much more visionary, right? Much more collaborative with the team and your peers around you, to be able to execute right on a vision for the business, or creating a direction right for the overall organization. So I think, as Linda said, it is adapting your leadership style that you're comfortable with. And then I think there's some principles that we'll talk about that later, but adapting that leadership style to the situation that you find yourself in.
Thank you, Kurt. I'll take it one step forward from here. I think so. Linda spoke about there are a variety of leadership styles. Kurt was talking about, how everybody should choose their leadership style depending on who they're working in, what the situation is. I'll actually talk to you about a couple of leadership styles that have worked for me, and it kind of depends on who you're working with. I truly agree with that. So, as leaders here at EXL in our different roles, we all work with teams that directly report to us sometimes, and sometimes we work with broader teams that don't report to us, but we're kind of focusing on a common cause and they kind of come together. Now, if you are very comfortable with the team that you're working with, and you know that they are, very skilled towards the goal that we're trying to achieve that goal, you want to give them a hands-off approach where they kind of, come together with that with that minimal guidance from your side, and kind of help you kind of take that decision. So you kind of empower them with the decision making power. That's one way of how we see things when we are working with a very mature team. But then on the other hand, when you're not working with a very mature team, that's where you want to kind of go with a what I would call a democratic approach, where you take ideas from everyone, you encourage everyone to bring their ideas forward, but then you ultimately you keep the decision making to yourself, which is basically learning from everyone, taking a balanced decision, and then kind of deciding how you move forward to achieving that goal. So those are typically some approaches that I have personally seen work very well in the environment that we're in.
Awesome. Yeah, I think those are all really great responses. So yeah, obviously this panel, my three panel mates have all been really great leaders and all taken really like strong, bold leadership positions in EXL itself. Um, and I think a cool commonality of those responses and this question of leadership styles is it's very flexible. So um, leadership doesn't mean the exact same thing in the same scenario. You have to adapt to your audience, your team. You have to adapt to the task at hand. As Kurt mentioned, you have to adapt to the goal of your team and your business. Like in strategy, you have to be fairly visionary. You have to inspire your team to think outside of the box and approach problems differently. And yeah, I think just in general, your leadership style has to change with your situation, and you have to think about what your team needs, what the people that you're leading need, and what they need from you, and their both their individual and group needs, and then how you can stimulate those the best.
That's amazing. I love it, and it reminds me, because we're talking about different, qualities and adapting and depending the audience and what is needed, right? Not necessarily what our personality is. So last night I was helping my son to do a homework for a leadership class that he's taking in college. So basically, the scenario was that the productivity of the team, the sales team, was low, and they want to know why. So they met with the managers and they met with the team. So the team said that the managers or the leaders were very too micromanaging everything, and they had like a big long list of tasks that they needed to submit, and that the team was a little bit frustrated with that. And then the manager said that, well, that's how we do it. That how we've been doing it for a long time, so that's how it is. So he needed to come up with ideas to, make the leadership better, and then so the team could work towards a goal, and then get rid of that managing system. So it's interesting because it adapts to different situations depending on the need. So, what could be, if you can think of, in any specific situation within what you do, right? Whether you're the leader or whether you have a leader above you, if you can think of any situation in specific that was like a maybe something that needed to be fixed, or maybe something that you needed to implement some specific leadership style to that situation, that so we can give this to the teens and they can say, okay, I see what you're saying. So is there anything that you can think of, or any situation that you can think that you went through as a leader or with your leader, and what was that resolution in that specific moment? Is there anything that comes to mind?
I can come up with an example here. So, when you are choosing someone from your team to become the next leader, basically, when you're trying to elevate someone within a group, right? It kind of creates a little bit of discomfort for the rest of the team members, saying, why was he chosen or she chosen versus not me, etc. And your choices are obviously driven by various factors. You obviously looked at this person because of the skill, the capability, the commitment, the loyalty that they've shown, and the kind of you bring them forward. But then how do you kind of prepare them to kind of stand out? Sometimes you have to take the approach of really going from the back door here, where you do not provide them feedback and inputs, on a FaceTime basis in front of the entire team. You kind of work with them, empower them, give them inputs, ideas, in a one-to-one kind of chat, and make sure that they kind of sharpen themselves to truly reflect as leaders and stand out in front of the rest of the team. So that is just one example where I feel like you have to be careful about how you kind of, kind of creating leaders and empowering leaders and making them stand out and be come across as somebody who's very confident, committed, and capable. That's the example I wanted to share.
I've run into this situation over the years, and oftentimes, especially, and I've been guilty of it as well, and I've been held accountable for it as well. Of you get into a situation that perhaps it's a short time frame, right? Or there are many tasks that need to be performed as part of a project or a program, and as a leader, it is very, very easy to kind of auger down in the detail, right? Of if you just get this done, did you get that done? Let's get a status report. Let's have a conference call. Let's do this. Let's do that, right? And uh, and I would say more than one instance, and actually I'd say probably in every instance, as a leader, you have to be aware of what's valuable time that you're asking of your team relative to the work that you're asking them to do versus you're just creating more work and you're distracting them from the work that they actually need to do. And it's a trap at times that leaders find themselves in. But as if you are, whether again it's a formal role or it's an informal role, you always have to think about um, the team that you're interacting with and that you're looking, to um, do the work, and make sure that if I'll put it this way, your worries or your insecurities about the progress of that work is not getting in the way of them actually performing the work. That's this close example that I can think of, Dolly, to the um, example that you shared.
So I want to ask you something on that before we keep going with the others, if you have more examples. How do you think a leader cannot fall into that trap? So what will be the strategy to say, let, to not go there? What will be the steps before that a leader should take in order to be aware that
Sure.
this could be a trap?
Yeah. So I think one of the kind of key things is to really have a definition of what the goal or the outcome is. It's not just starting activity for the sake of activity, but we are driving to a defined outcome and making sure that the people that you're working with, again, your direct team or an informal team that you're part of, understands what that goal or that outcome is. Oftentimes, um, you know, projects get launched or, activity gets launched with kind of a loose goal or a loose outcome. And that leaves a lot of room for interpretation among the team. So the more that you can define what that end outcome or goal is, the more I would say productive the activity will be from the team itself.
That's amazing. Last night I was listening to a podcast from Myron Golden. I don't know if you know him, but they were talking about that. Um, when we have a goal, right, and suddenly we have these different tasks in between that not necessarily is going to take you to the goal, but is going to distract you or delay to
Yeah.
get there. So that's
Yeah.
super important, super good. So any other examples that you guys can think of, or something that you say, okay, in this situation, this was applied, or we can apply this?
Both Rich and Kurt have extensive experience in managing and delivering outcomes at the business level. So being responsible for the delivery of their teams as well, which puts them definitely in a different position, and a very important position. Um, and in my inexperience, I'll take it in a little bit of a different direction. So I was lucky enough in college to compete in Division I in track, and I was a captain for a couple years on that team, and I found that um, leadership was easier when we were winning. Leadership is easy. Everyone's motivated and excited and knows exactly what they need to be doing when we're winning, when we're walking home with a trophy. Um, when we're not, when something's gone wrong, when we've failed, that's when leadership is much more challenging. And I found that in those scenarios where guys have fallen short, that one of the best things that I was able to do as a leader was number one, support them. So get them through that day. Of course, they're going to be disappointed that they failed at their task, they've fallen short, but to move forward and unpack what may have gone wrong, and really be holistic in that, in unpacking what may have gone wrong. So thinking about, like, was your preparation off? Were you sleeping enough? Was your fueling right? All those indicators or leading indicators in that specific environment for track that lead to success. But then even on the execution side as well. So really trying to be holistic and address it end to end in a supportive way, and help them, maybe unpack what they can do better in the future, and then empower them to do that as well, and then empower them to do that in a way that instills confidence in their ability moving forward, and then their value as a team member as well.
Awesome. I
Very
love
well.
that. And there were, does anybody else want to bring some other examples?
Yeah,
Uh,
I'll throw in a couple of others just because I think there's a lot of different scenarios, and we've gotten a great distribution of those. But the two that popped to my mind were, one is when you're trying to really engage your team or get them committed to a goal or get them focused. A lot of times the big role becomes one where you're listening, where you're hearing what's going on, where their concerns are, what their focus is. So I think listening becomes a big skill when you're trying to engage and build connection with people, to help get you to that space to get them on board. And the second one that came to mind is when you are in a space of change, which a lot of times where leadership really demonstrates itself is in a space of change. When you're there, I think it's the ability to really, a lot of times people can get tense or they can get negative or they can focus on everything that's going wrong. It's the ability to kind of pull up outside of that and acknowledge it. You don't want to ignore it, but you also, that leader takes the initiative to say, yes, there are some challenges, but helps the team focus on how do we look at the positives, and how do we then, by focusing on the positive side, systematically solve the problems with a more realistic and balanced view.
That's amazing. And dealing with people, it takes a lot of emotional intelligence. Am I right? Who can agree with that? So you guys have mentioned different things like distractions. When you're gonna do a promotion, listening, and then the winning part, right? So when we're losing or when we're not achieving our goals, and we're dealing with the thing, we do need to have that emotional intelligence, knowing where we are, where we're gonna go, and to not give that negativity to the people, because at the end you're the coach, you're their cheerleader, they're counting on you. So how important is the emotional intelligence that the leaders need to have, and how can they improve that part every day?
I can go and comment a little bit on that. I think when you talk about leaders, right? Uh, I personally feel, and this is again me, and I'll okay if my colleagues here on the panel disagree with me a little bit, but I think as a leader, the only skill that ultimately would matter, right, is your EQ, not your IQ, right? It's your emotional coefficient, which is the most important skill that you need to have as a leader. When you are in with your team with tough situations, it's not just how good you are at managing work, or the type of activity that you are doing, and do you have the skill to manage that activity. That's not the only thing or the important thing here. um, it's the ability to engage with your team members at a very personalized level, understand what backgrounds they come from, understand what their working styles are, understand their cultural backgrounds, understand their family challenges, understand their working style challenges. You got to really know them a lot in person and have that emotional connect with them to be able to commit to be able to ensure that they are kind of committed to you and they're committed to the goal. If they don't trust you, they don't feel comfortable, if they're not ready to share their vulnerabilities with you, then they will not come forward the way they can when they're comfortable with you and they can trust you. So I feel that the EQ is the most ultimate skill, and that's where the big focus should be. So to that point, I'll hand it over to others.
I would absolutely agree, Rish.
Thank you, Gabe.
You know, we're all people, right? I think that's the most important thing. We are all people, and work is one aspect of our lives.
Yes.
And it is hard, right, to keep the other aspects of home life, school life, whatever else, away from work, right? You walk in and you've got all of what happened the night before, the afternoon before, over the weekend that could have been good, could have been bad, could have been, blah. Uh, and that affects, you know, how we perform at our jobs. And uh, again, I'll just emphasize whether you are the direct leader or you are a coworker, but you can help energize, right, the team through informal leadership styles. Understanding the context of the person that you're working with, and the teams that you're working with is hugely important. Um, Rish said it, right? Of that is a foundational, I'd say, principle of establishing trust. If you can relate to that person, um, both from a work standpoint, but also with what is going on to the degree that they want to share anything going on with their lives, and be sensitive about that. I think that's a very, very important attribute of a leader.
Yeah, and I was also going to jump in and just say I completely agree. So much the primary characteristic. You can have all the knowledge, but if you can't interact with people and identify with people and help get people rallied and focused, then you're not a leader at all. So it really is the key component.
Yeah, these are awesome insights. I'd say for anyone who's watching this, all three of my fellow panelists are really great leaders with really awesome track records, and I think they just shared amazing insights, especially on the EQ front and the holistic understanding front. And as Kurt mentioned too, what happens over the weekend. Your life is more than just work, and so if you're a leader in the workplace, of course, 95% of or more of your interactions with your team members is going to be about that work component, but the rest of life matters a lot too. And so I think focusing on each individual that you're leading and each person on your team and having a really deep understanding of who they are, their background, um, what they like, what excites them, in and outside of the work professional environment. But yeah, just holistically in life, understanding people's background, how they're doing, what they like, who they are. That's going to be a leading indicator of leadership ability.
Actually, let me share an example, something that happened very, very recently, and why is it so important that you need to, know your team at a very intimate level, right, and understand what's going on. Um, I was in process of hiring some new team members, and the responsibility was given to one of the recruiting managers. And I continued following up a few times. I had requested to get a weekly update, and things were just not coming through. Right, I was not seeing that happen. This gentleman would go out and commit saying, "Yes, I'm going to do it this week or next week," but it just didn't come through. Right. So obviously, without the hiring, I'm kind of struggling a little bit and getting my work done because I need some more bandwidth. So I picked up the phone and called this gentleman on a one-on-one basis, and I said, "What's going on? What's kind of holding you back? Because you seem to be very promising. You qualified. You've come all this way in your career. Obviously, you have the capability to deliver. So something is off. What's going on? He finally told me that his mother was in intensive care unit fighting cancer. I just could not comprehend um, how he was even able to manage even the minimum amount of work in a situation where he's spending all his time in the hospital, where probably his mother would not make it. That's where she was in terms of the stage of her well-being. So it was very difficult, and I have made sure that I'm able to find ways to create a backup plan, get this person a little bit of help, do whatever I could to make sure that things move forward. Now he has the skill, he has the capability, but I don't think so. He had the time to deliver what he had. So when I got him a new person in his team to support that under his guidance, the work started moving forward, and I already managed to close one out of the three positions that I had. So that is just one example of how you need to kind of jump over the fence, go to the other side, learn what's going on in their lives, and enable them to deliver what they're required to do.
That's amazing, and we're sending our prayers and strength to their family because it's definitely a difficult time and situation. But it took you right to have that emotional intelligence. Like, wait a minute, maybe something is off. Let me find out instead of just jumping out of the gate like you're not producing. I'm gonna take you out of the team. Okay, well, so that's amazing, and thank you so much for that example because it brings light, and then they can see the situations and apply it into different styles of leadership. And definitely, from what you guys have said, communication and connection is everything when we are being leaders and we want the team to trust you. So one of you mentioned the trust in the leader is super important for the leader to move forward. So thank you so much. It has been great. But before we leave, I have two questions for you guys, so the audience can know you a little bit better. We call it the hot seat question. If you could instantly become an expert in one thing, what would that be?
I think we'll have a common answer these days.
I think I'll
We
have
all want to
the.
become. We all have to become more intelligent on AI. That is where everything is. I hope you were not expecting any different answer here.
That would be my answer too. I don't know if all of you agree.
Yeah. AI, right? And the fuel for AI is data, right? So understanding how you can consume data, right, within the AI models, those go hand in glove. So I think at least in the spaces that we are, as Rich indicated, uh, those are the two kind of um, things that we are constantly challenged with in the marketplace.
Think just to add to what Kurt said, right, I would also say that this is for young people, this is for the future generation. We use this term in our world, uh, kind of missing out, but making sure that AI is not being misused. There is a term that we use for that. I'm sure if anybody can help me with that. But be responsible. I think it's called responsible. Be responsible about what AI is doing.
Yeah.
AI is not just limited to our industry where we're using it for data and some automation, but it's being used for a lot of incorrect things, even in our industry where we see a lot of frauds, a lot of transactions that are getting pushed into way, and we're kind of trying to catch them. But be respectful about how you use AI. That's one message I would leave the team with.
I think in the context of this conversation as well, right? The third element is understanding how to lead teams, right, that
Yeah.
interact with AI, right, that are the new set of engineers, the developers, the workforce, right, that has to interact. I think every at least in the industries that we work in, there's the phrase of human in the loop, right? There will always be instances where AI can't solve everything, and you need people, right, to make decisioning on that. So as you think about it in the context of leadership, how does that change, right? In leadership styles. And one element is being knowledgeable about the strengths and the weaknesses and challenges of AI and how you lead teams with that transformation.
Yeah, and I'll add on to that too, because it also is about how do you help people. Both a lot of people are worried that it will take over, like the computers will rule the world. How do you help them through that change? And how do you help them develop and build the skills they need to operate effectively in what's coming, to maximize the capabilities and be able to contribute the most they can individually as well?
That's amazing. We, AI is the thing, so you need to have it. It doesn't matter what you do, it's here, it's staying, and that's the future. So last thing before we leave, if you can master any instrument, which one would you pick?
Music instrument?
Yes.
Okay. I'll wait for my answer.
All
So
right.
that was an easy one for me. I would pick the piano. I would love to be a pianist.
Me too.
Me, the drums, right? Pound away, right? And release all that tension from the day.
Mm. Do you like rock? Is that your
Yes,
music?
absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah,
What
I'd
about
say,
you?
yeah. For me, I don't know. I played saxophone when I was younger. For any of those watching when I was your age, I played saxophone and I loved it a lot. But now, I don't know. Maybe give me guitar. Like Kurt, I like rock. So I don't know. Give me guitar.
For me, it's saxophone. I think I don't know how to play it, but something that I want to at some time. Very classy, very peaceful. Lets you blow steam. That's that's what Kurt was saying when he said about drums. So Kurt, I'm picking up something else. I just want to blow steam out of my mouth rather than blow it out of my hands.
That's awesome. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much for being here. Thank you to our lovely panelists for taking the time today to be part of our Career Lounge sessions. And thank you for joining us. We hope today's conversation has given you insight and clarity on making plans for life after high school. Special thanks to the Career Lounge session sponsor EXL, a leading data analytics and digital operations and solutions company. If you want to learn more about EXL, go to exlservice.com. Thank you to their sponsorship. We are able to bring this lounge to you at no cost. We look forward to seeing you at the next Career Lounge sessions. Remember, all the sessions are here on YouTube, so make sure you go to our playlist, you watch them all, you share, you like, you comment, you subscribe, and we hope to see you here in the next session.